Welcome back to another episode of Peeping Ballers, recapping South Korea's match against Palestine. Folks, we got a good one. I got the Avengers assembling. Charles, Kevin, Michael, gentlemen, how we doing?
Doing good, Albert. Congratulations to all of us and to whoever's listening for the match. We've got plenty to talk about. So I don't know. I've got more questions than I've got answers. So that's the general feel that I'm starting with. So
Tough match, but I think there's some positives we can there's some positives we can there's some silver linings we can find. Yeah, it was a tough match.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should have Kevin ask the questions and then maybe me and Charles can try to find the silver linings.
And just to give a quick summary before Kevin starts us off, we played Palestine. It's our second game against them in, I believe, we're at the third round of World Cup qualifying. At this point, qualification is pretty much secured for South Korea. This was more of a test of seeing how we do against a stiff opponent, to be honest. And we played away in Jordan because of obviously the situation in Palestine, 1-1 draw. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot we can get into right now. And Kevin, I guess what's kind of the most pertinent thing that was bugging you when you saw this game?
yeah, man. I mean, I said it after the Kuwait game. I kind of predicted that Palestine would be a much more difficult match because, I mean, just off face value, they have way more to play for than probably any other country currently in this world. Um, and yeah, so this was the big test. And like I said, I got more questions than answers. We bossed most of the ball with 74% of possession for the entirety of the match, but play was discordant, man. Like I've echoed this point once before, but I'll say it again because it's a big talking point. Our fullbacks look neutralized compared to how they were under Bento or Klinsmann even. Play is really disjointed. Um, Hwang is still pulling all the strings, but literally pulling all the strings. And this was one of those matches where it reminded me of like a 2015 performance where Heung-min just took the ball and tried to do everything he possibly could. It was a lot of play. Shout out to Trey for this one because it was a lot of play where we relied a lot more on our individual talents rather than any semblance of tactics. And that's pretty indicative of where we are as a national team. Also, we haven't even gotten to the points of the subs that Myung-bo made throughout the game. So, I mean, gentlemen, I'll leave the floor to you guys after that. Those are the big things that come to my head. I'm sure I've forgotten a couple of things, but we can start from there.
Go ahead,
What
Mike.
you're saying about like Hwang is the big problem with Hwang. Hwang, if you give him space like he got against Kuwait, which is what Trey was talking about, I saw this on Blue Sky. Uh, Look at the space that he has to make the assist that he makes last match. A lot of time. When he doesn't have time, he's not as good of a player. And that's just like a limitation of him as a player, right? And so Palestine were very, aggressive in their press. They were fouling us like crazy in the middle of the pitch. And so what does that mean? Hwang has no time to create what he wants to create. Um, so it's a dilemma. Is there someone on this team that could maybe create more with less time? I think we all know who that guy's name is. Does anyone want to tell me who that guy's name is?
I'm going to say Kang-in.
Yeah, so I mean, just to summarize a little bit, I think we got a little unlucky. Like, the goal we conceded was our mistake. That was our fault. Kim Min-ja's pass was a little weak. Some blame the grass. I don't want to talk about the grass after a loss like this. Palestine played on the same grass we did, so that's no excuse. And then Choyonu definitely could have picked that up better, and he was a little rocky the entire game. And then the one goal we had was through like a triangle play. I think it was Chesong, Seun, and Heung-min, and that was honestly like the only creative offensive play that I saw, like the best chance that we created. And then, most unfortunately, the refs totally stole a goal away from us at the end of the first half. I thought it was offsides at first, but they called a foul off a Yongwoo header. So uh, he could have had like one of his first goals in a long time. So even all that being said, I think we could have gotten the result, but then things just didn't play our way. I think a lot of people made in the chat that it's Palestine. We can't be. That's no excuse. We should have beaten them 3-1, 4-1, based on even like the FIFA World Cup rankings. But yeah, I mean, outside of Sunny today, I don't know, and maybe Imbom here and there, it's like everybody was just horrible. And then I think we can zoom in a little bit on Myung-bo's tactics for that reason. He was playing his subs, he was playing everybody out of their normal positions, and everybody, instead of being highlighted, became invisible. I think like just off the top, like the two subs he put in, putting Ju Mingyu and Oh Hyung-gyu at as a two top, and then taking out Kang-in, and putting in Juno on the right. It's Juno always plays on the left and sometimes as a 10. It's like, what are we doing here? And then Kang-in and Sunny are our two most creative players. When you take out Kang-in, now everybody's focused on Sunny. I think we can squeeze in Imbom's passing as a creative player as well, but when you look at our roster, we're very dependent on Sunny and Kang-in, and I just didn't understand. Yeah, Kang-in wasn't playing well. He was invisible in the first half for sure, like especially compared to his PSG form. But for our squad, you take out our two top players, but then he's gonna keep in Yongwoo. He's gonna keep in Kim Bin-jae. He's still keeping in all these other players. Chol Yong-woo on the right. Just really odd. We can zoom in a little bit more on the subs and Myung-bo's tactics, because I think that's kind of the biggest theme here. But those are just my fresh thoughts.
Perfect segue by Charles. Let's get into basically the tactics and the lineup. So, for those who didn't watch the match, Myung-bo starts basically the exact starting 11 that he puts out against Kuwait. And then in the second half, he hauls off Oh Se-hoon for Ju Mingyu, which is the exact same type of player. And then after that, though, he pulls off Lee Kang-in and Lee Jae-sung, and he puts on Bae Jun-ho and then Oh Hyung-gyu, which is essentially playing with two strikers up top, which we haven't done in ages. Bae Jun-ho's shifting out to the right side when he's never really played in that position. Isn't playing there for Stoke at all. So it completely disjointed the attack. Those subs basically made our attack even worse. Palestine was the more threatening team as the game wore on. To be honest, probably should have maybe scored one. So it's like all the problems I thought Myung-bo would get into, like playing random dudes from his club team, Ju Mingyu, Lee Myung-jae, who have been terrible for the national team so far, and then hauling off players that are actually doing well and putting the wrong guys on. It gave me a little flashbacks to his 2014 World Cup and that weird decisions he would make then. But like Charles said, once the second half came, he made adjustments. They just weren't the right ones, and that does concern me going into the future, because in my personal opinion, yes, Myung-bo did well against Kuwait, we did well against Iraq, we did well against Jordan. To be honest, I think a lot of those victories can be attributed to the fact that Son Heung-min and Lee Kang-in balled out along with Hwang In-bom at critical times. To be fair, your best players need to be your best players, but I'm not seeing anything special tactically or creative-wise that makes me think Myung-bo is the guy to adjust when things do go wrong eventually against bigger opponents.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest, it's all just very disjointed. I think to our credit, this beginning of the second half, there was more intensity. So we saw a lot of passes or crosses flash against the Palestinian goal. And that's where our best chances came. Hwang In-bom had an opportunity that he skied high after some build-up intricate play like that. Charles also made a great point that technically we could be 2-1 up, and this would all just be more postulation and taken less seriously, because I truly don't understand why Park Kyung-woo's header was denied. I don't even know why the whistle was blown on the build-up play beforehand. And then again, it was a Hwang In-bom ball that found Heung-min, who was just a couple of inches offsides that went into the back of the net. So again, it's individual moments like the corner kicks or individual brilliance like Hwang In-bom's delivery to Son Heung-min that eventually leads us to scoring goals. But you're talking about tactics, and I'm not even going to get into the subs part just now. Like, I'm still going to wax on forever about how weak or one-dimensional our fullbacks look. I didn't really see any intricate play on the wings. The ball was being carried by Son on the left, or Kang-in would hold it up when it comes to him on the right. A point that I did want to make when it came to some in-game decisions. Funnily enough, I thought Cho Heung-min was stronger than Kim Min-jae. Kim Min-jae had that wayward pass that led to our first concession, but there were also a bunch of wayward passes that either just like went out of bounds or um what was I can't remember the one specifically, but I remember there was one wayward pass that was just poor. And then after that, for the next 25 minutes, I didn't see Kim Min-jae try another long ball. Whereas Cho Heung-min, he had moments of composure where he would take the ball and instead of just doing this pass the ball constantly from end to end in the back, he would take like a dribble and like fill in the half space and just like sneak past his marker and then find some space in the in-betweens of Palestine's forward and midfield line to feed something cute or something decent to one of our midfielders. I mean, that's the type of intricacy that I generally didn't see. A lot of profile players were just doing their thing, passing the ball around, but no innovation to really beat Palestine's low block. And that's why the game also reminded me of Stilica ball back in 2015, when that's all we would do. Keep possession, just pass it around, try to find space, but not really because not much innovation is there. And that's the biggest takeaway I'm getting from this match.
Yeah, another takeaway that I had is like, it seems like Myung-bo has one style of play, and he doesn't have a plan A or a plan B. So, zooming in on that one style of play, it feels like the first is a Hwang-in-bum, Kang-in to Oh-seun header. If that's not working, then we have the left wing, Sonny, doing magic with, I mean, there's some triangle passing play that happens there. But if those don't work, we don't have anything. We don't have set pieces. We don't build up anything in the middle, which is why I was so shook by him taking off Kang-in. Because at minimum, maybe Kang-in can do some like subjective personal creativity and create something. But I see this as our biggest problem moving forward because ultimately, guys, our goal is getting out of the group stage, seeing how far we can get in the World Cup. We're playing against AFC countries that we should be dominating like Japan is doing. And by the way, Japan is rotating players every match. They're not even playing their first squad all the time, and they're beating teams 4-1, getting clean sheets. So this is really troublesome in my eyes in the long term. You know, effective managers, they have a plan A, B, C, D. You know, can he play a counterattacking style? As soon as the Palestine goal went in, I was like, this is the type of game script that I want to see Myung-bo do his magic, if he has any. Because the Kuwait match, we went up 1-0, and then you could kind of see like the Korean players kind of front runners right now. It's like we score one early, then we might have a good performance. But when we're down, it's like we're scrapping for anything. And Myung-bo's subs really just even like took more out of the air than was already out of the air. We can talk more about the subs. I think that's like a huge subject we all need to get into.
Well, Mike, before you jump in, Charles said something I want to lay on a silver platter for you. He said the middle was the problem. We're not creating anything through the middle. Mike, who has been Ho Myung-bo's main central attacking midfielder number 10 for his tenure so far?
Oh, you're my guy. That was great. Thanks for the wingman performance there. Yeah, so maybe, just maybe, Lee Jae-sung is not meant to be the main creator through the middle for this team. I was talking about this in the group chat. Essentially, marooning Lee Kang-in out on the right flank means that defenders can just key in on him, and then they can shut down his space and make him look at the flank, make him look at that pitch, at that touchline, and see who he has to pass to. And in this setup, it's usually Son Heung-min, but Son Heung-min is not fast. So it's not like he can lay it like 10 yards or 15 or 20 yards in front of him. He probably is going to have to like make a short pass closer to the touchline, where then Son Heung-min was just in a bad position as well. Tactically, it's not really ideal for the type of player that Kang-in is. So you'd probably want to pair him with someone better or just let him play in the center. Like one of two things, right? So if you keep him on the right side, which technically makes sense, then you need to play a different like fullback as a right back. You just need a different player, because what I've been noticing is that Son Heung-min is always very close to him, within about 5 yards. That's not really ideal for him as a player. But then the other dilemma, if you actually make him the main central creator, the central attacking midfielder, and for example, you try to move Lee Jae-sung out to the right wing, you realize that Lee Jae-sung is not good out there. So then you have to play someone else. And that's, I think, the dilemma and the problem that Myung-bo is using to justify the fact that he keeps playing Lee Jae-sung as the central attacking midfielder. He's basically somewhat saying or arguing with his selections that he doesn't think he has a better right wing or right midfielder than Lee Kang-in. And he may be right about that, but he's also not trying anybody else to actually give us evidence as if that's true. Like that's my main point here. You can make these sort of selection choices, but you could also rotate and give us evidence to back up your arguments.
Yeah, like he brought Kim Moon-han for Seolyoung in the 90th minute. Like, what are we doing there? And we saw Kim Moon-han shine during the last World Cup. He was one of my favorite players. I didn't know who he was really until that World Cup, and I was like, wow, this dude's balling. We've been talking a lot about the problems, and I kind of want to get creative and think about what solutions do we have in the talent pool. So it's like the World Cup is 2 years from now. There's talk about Yang Min-hyuk already starting or going to get some playing time at Tottenham because of their injury issues right now. So maybe if he develops, we put him on the right and then we put Kang-in in the middle. And then I was keeping this in my back pocket from the group chat for the video, but a game like this made me think of Hwang Hee-chan. I know he's been horrible form, but he's a wild card that, like, something that I miss in this national team right now is pace. Sonny used to have pace, but he's just like a finisher right now. Kang-in's not pace right now, or never has been. He's very creative on the ball. Like, Hwang Hee-chan is that wild card that defenders are like, oh snap, like this guy can run past us, sprint past us. So I really hope in the future that there's going to be room for Hee-chan on the roster. I know he's not playing well, but he at least gives us a different flavor, a wild card off the bench. Like I was saying, when plan A and plan B don't work, we need something that's just to throw in there and let's see what happens. So yeah, I definitely, it made me think of Hwang Hee-chan for some reason, because I was like, like we're missing that pace down the left flank, and then potentially Sonny. Like I imagine a front three where like Hee-chan could maybe play on the left or Peugeot, Sonny top, Kang-in in the middle, and then on the right maybe Yang Min-hyuk or the fella at Celtic who's not been getting much time, but he showed some moments under Bentu. So yeah, it made me think of Hee-chan in a funny way.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills, but Heung-min can play on the right still, you reckon, right? Like, because if he still has that capacity, then Hwang Hee-chan obviously has a game to play on the left. But also, like, shoutouts to Pejunho, excuse me, because Pejunho is kind of like the similar profile of a player that Hwang Hee-chan is. Someone who's direct, someone who's going to try to beat their man, someone who's going to try to create something out of nothing in the final third. With Lee Jae-sung, I honestly still want to see us start with Lee Jae-sung. I hear you, Charles, in the sense that it's good to be more progressive and try to think about solutions. But for me right now, this front four of Kang-in on the right, Lee Jae-sung in the middle, and Son Heung-min on the left, I think it's worth starting. And I think there's more that needs to be figured out rather than more diagnosing of a potential problem. And I think that as games develop, Kang-in should indeed play the 10 while Lee Jae-sung goes out, and then you have someone subbing in on the right. But Lee Jae-sung still for me is just that guy who he's not someone notable when he does anything right, because when he does do it right, the play just continues to move. The play is just forward always. And on top of that, he always pops up with the odd goal, and he's gotten better with his head. So I still think he's an offensive threat, but Kang-in is undisputably our technically best player. He is probably second to only Hwang In-bum when picking out a pass and breaking the lines with a pass. But I think our front four isn't too much of a problem. It's just our general strategy in getting the ball towards them, and then them being in a position where they can like maximize their own creativity and offensive threat.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the front store is solid for starting. I was more speaking about what are we gonna do when that doesn't work. And then obviously his subs were horrific today. It's like
True.
Chu Mingyu can't even head the ball. He's like a holding forward. He's old. Another problem I have is like the manager has a couple like key things he needs to consider. It's like the long term, the short term, and the match at hand. He's not thinking about long term at all. Like Chu Mingyu should not be part of the squad in 2026. At the defensive midfielder position, Park Yong-woo, he should not. He's gonna get. He was completely invisible. It's like we were playing with 10 men. Like, what is he even there for? Like, try Hong Yeon-suk, try anybody. Bongsu, he added players to the roster for this cycle selection, but he didn't even play them. So it's like, why is he not using? We're like 14 points, top of the table. Why is he not using these moments to configure something new? Just try something, especially younger players, because we know we're going to have to depend on them in 2026. So that's another point of disappointment. It's like, what are you thinking about in the long term? You're still using these old players. Left back, right back, he hasn't gone creative. He just sticks with the starters. And then that's that. And when they're not, like, my gosh, man, Lee Myung-jae's crossing. I actually didn't mind Lee Myung-jae during like the first couple qualifiers, but Albert was like crapping on him, and I was like, I don't think so. He's that bad. Like he still brings the ball up. Like I think he's more efficient than Seo Young-woo in a lot of times. But man, every cross, I'm like, hit square a little longer, my guy. Like push it a little bit further. Like it's just, oh man, yeah.
All right. I mean that was fun. That was fun to listen to. I'm not gonna lie. So going back to kind of like a little bit what Kevin was getting at, like the front four, I think may not be the problem. And I've seen you guys in the comments on YouTube. I've seen you saying like, oh, you know, he's the guy that's always saying that Lee Jae-sung should be benched, but he's the best player. Okay, I won't say that now then. Okay, let's try something else. Maybe the problem is that the two guys behind Lee Jae-sung are the problem. Like, what are we doing with small Hwang and Park Kyung-woo as our central midfielders in a game like this? Maybe that's the problem.
Wait, if you take out Hwang In-bum, who are you gonna put in for him?
I don't know. I'm just saying try something else. Do you get like the point?
I
like,
think Mike
let's
is
try
saying
something else.
I think Mike is saying the double pivot isn't working. Not necessarily take out Hwang In-bum, but letting them be the only ones in the middle is a problem, right? Park Young-woo and Hwang In-bum, that pairing isn't working.
I'm saying that Park Kyung-woo is the problem. Okay, if you're telling me that we need to be able to play better centrally and have more tactical things happening centrally, then it's clear that in a match like this where it's really tight, somebody like Hwang In-bum and Park Kyung-woo aren't a good combination because both of these guys seem to play best when they have time. When they are rushed, they play poorly. They make more mistakes when they're rushed. They can't turn fast enough because they're both veteran guys, like they're getting older. So their fast twitch muscles aren't as fast. Like, let's just say this. Park Kyung-woo at the Asian Cup, whenever he was pressured, was very bad. So we had to know that this may happen in a match like this. We had to know that that's how Palestine played because that's how they played as in Korea the last time. So why the same central midfielder pivot from the first time? Why not try something different?
I think so. This is like a large dose of copium and years of just like seeing the bar lower and lower and lower when it comes to having a six that can accompany Hwang In-bum. But Park Kyung-woo is still just that strict utility player. I can't even call him a defensive midfielder because he doesn't really contribute enough to break the offensive play for me to see him as a defensive midfielder. I personally think that against AFC opposition, he does his job with a lowercase do I J because he gets the ball and then he passes it 5-10 meters either to to the left or right of him or behind him. Only problem with that is that if that is your main habit in order to maintain possession while you're feeling some pressure, you're just kicking the bucket down to your back line. And luckily we have Min Jae who can take care of it more often than not. But if he has a game like this, then it's Park Kyung-woo adding extra burden to our defensive line, which is tough. And when it comes to Hwang In-bum, I personally think that he's good off the press. I think that he's good in relieving pressure because he's always moving the ball forward. I know that he got stripped in against Jordan during the Asian Cup, but he had been playing literally every single minute of every single game. And plus, that's 7 months in the past now. So I'm just thinking about these last 2 games. I think without Hwang In-bum, we're still finished. I'm very much so Hwang In-bum's. I still love Hwang In-bum. I still think Hwang In-bum provides something to this team that Kang-in doesn't. So as far as I'm concerned, he needs to stay in the midfield. Park Kyung-woo can do his job, but I think tactically speaking, we're just too one-dimensional. And if you're playing against a heavily physical team that's always looking to get stuck in, why are we always just trying to keep possession within a small bit of space where players will naturally try to crash into ours to try to disrupt our flow? Like, I need to see more cross-field balls. I just need to see more variety in the passing or how you're going to distribute possession. And if you're constantly going from your left back to your right back and to your left back again using the back line, nothing's going to happen, man. So, Charles, that's to your point about there being a plan B or a different tactic, because that was the initial one that Myung-bo used. And for 90 minutes, he was using it and nothing happened. So,
No, I was just gonna say, like, I think we do have a plan B or C based on the players we have, but his subs didn't revive or highlight those. Like last time when things didn't work or he wanted to switch things up, he put in Oh Young-gu at the 9 and then he put Pejun on the left, and it was like, oh, we saw something new, like less of the direct header crossing in, and then you know what, they did really well. But this time it's like he didn't keep it simple. He like felt like he was like a painter or something. He's like, let me just do something like a Guardiola. Let me go some fancy. It's like, what are you doing, man? Like, you're getting all the basics wrong. So that was frustrating. I think you can only create a plan B or C based on the type of players you have. And I think we do have some different types of players sitting on the bench. But today, man, he just F, like literally an F on the subs. Like, I don't think he could do any worse than what he did today.
Honestly, looking at the guys on the bench, I think Paek Sung-ho needs to maybe start playing next to In-bum. Not
I
that
don't hate
Sung-ho,
that. I don't hate
not
that.
yeah, not that Sung-ho is a 6 or that he's gonna be the ideal guy, but he's physical. He can defend a little bit, and his range of passing is a lot better than Park Kyung-woo. The one thing I actually think about now that Kevin mentioned it, I don't think I've ever seen Park Kyung-woo actually make a amazing defensive play or run back and make some key defensive contribution, which what he's supposed to do. I honestly think the only reason he's being played by Klinsmann and Hong is because he can pass the ball and he's big. And our other number 6s are either really small, not playing a lot in Europe, or they're just not good enough for the ones in the K-League. Either that, or I'm looking at the bench right now. Hong Young-suk was there. He was called up for this window. He didn't play much at all. So yeah, it's like, what are you doing? Like, you're not utilizing the players that you have. You're not being creative. And I honestly think that if we're worried about this double pivot, which I am as well, maybe we need to change formations and play a 4-3-3. I know Hong is more of a 4-2-3-1 guy at the double pivots, but looking at the competition we're going to play, do we really think that In-bum is going to get that much time on the ball against the Uruguay or Colombia or even against the US MNT, even against the Mexico, even though they're bad? Do we think Park Young-woo is going to be able to hold up against the pressure that those teams are going to put on him? He wasn't even able to handle the pressure against Jordan in the Asian Cup. So there are like solutions here. I don't see a number 6 right now that can take over, except for maybe Kim Bong-soo, but he didn't play. But yeah, Hong seems to kind of be reverting to his usual habits that we were worried about.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about this. Like, our last video was like, relax, it's Kuwait, right? And we were kind of somewhat getting hopeful, or even like after the Iraq when we were getting a little hopeful, right? But now we're seeing it, right? We're seeing what Hong Myung-bo is. Let's go to the subs and let's talk about them a little bit and how they don't really make sense, right? Bae Jun-ho doesn't play as a right wing or a right midfielder. if I could prescribe a alternate option off the bench, I think that Union Berlin's Jong Eun might have been a good idea here. If we're talking about Ju Min-gyu for Osehun, that really didn't make a lick of sense because they're the same type of player. They're just a tall dude that is somewhat technically adept at holding up play, but that didn't change anything because they both have the same amount of pace essentially. So that didn't change anything. Oh Hyun-gyu for Lee Jae-sung, like what? That makes absolutely zero sense because Oh Hyun-gyu is very much not a central attacking midfielder at all. He's a striker. He's essentially like a fox in the box finisher. Like you put him into space and then he shoots and scores. So asking him to decide to pull the strings like was really like beyond stupid. So like those three substitutions alone, like they made zero sense if you're trying to break the tie and win the match.
And, just looking at the macro a little bit, is like we needed to win this match. We needed the 3 points today to be able to rotate and take it easy in the March matches that are upcoming. Because if I'm looking at the table right now, we're only 3 points ahead of number 2. Jordan's playing right now. They're going to beat Kuwait, and Iraq's at 11 points. So Korea's at 14, Jordan's at 11, Iraq's at 11, and then we play Jordan and Oman. So those aren't going to be sleeper games anymore. That could have been used as an opportunity to develop young players. So like this was like a must win, and this was a winnable match. We made a mistake on the defensive end to concede. And then the second half, his subs ruined everything. We created no chances after that. So, and he messed up in the game, but then he also messed up our prospects for an easy World Cup qualifying. Because we have to finish top 2. If we do top 3, which it seems like Korea, Jordan, and Iraq are going to fight for top 3. The third place is playoffs, but like, come on, Myung-bo, like we should have had this one. Really disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've come to just accept in the same way that I've accepted the state of our center midfield pairing. Heung-min is not going to be one to experiment. Heung-min has his favorites. He has the type of football that he wants to play, and he's going to commit to it. And we are just going to be here to witness. And I don't know, like I don't really have much to look forward to when it comes to how we're going to progress with Heung-min. I don't want to sound depressing or defeatist. I mean, if I just try to spin this as a positive, let me just say maybe he's learned from his sub choices and he realizes, oh yeah, a 4-4-2 to finish out a game when we're trying to maintain possession maybe might not be the best. Oh yeah, maybe doing a like for like striker change with someone who's supposed to be your target man when you haven't been holding the ball to target your man doesn't make sense. Oh yeah, maybe playing a winger on the right side when he doesn't have experience on the right side doesn't make sense. And so let's say that with the latter, you swap, maybe it's something as simple as just like you swap Heung-min and Pedro so that Heung-min is now on the right. Maybe they'll just like, like there's opportunities for little tweaks and there's opportunities for growth with Heung-min in regards to the subs that he makes moving forward. But when it comes to our general play style and how we move the ball, how we hold on to the ball, the decisions that we make offensively, it's not cute.
One positive thing, just if we can take away anything that's positive, is Son Heung-min. He doesn't, because he was going through an injury stint and he looked out of form at Tottenham, but looks like he's back. He's our GOAT. He's our most reliable player. He can play central, left wing, right wing, passing, finishing, taking the free kick, takes the right side corners, which created one creative set piece opportunity for us that Kang-in, I think, got deflected out. So Sonny, 32, that's like old for football, but he's still our guy. And I mean, I actually think that's a negative because I keep looking for like, what are we gonna look like when Sonny's not at top? Like, we would have lost today if Sonny wasn't peak form, 0-1. Like, what are we gonna do? So I ended up turning the positive into a negative, but I enjoyed seeing our boy, like our captain, just doing his thing again. I'm really gonna miss him when he's gone. I hope he can be our Ronaldo, play till he's 40, and keep pushing us over the line like this. But 감사해요 주장 손흥민 진짜로. 손흥민만 있다. Oh.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I like Charles here. I was like, at what point do I jump in and say like, how is that a positive? But then you got there on your own, man. I like that. Appreciate you, man. Yeah, like my point was like, how is that a positive when we already knew that? Like, we already knew that this guy was the best, you know. And then like Kevin was saying like, it's not cute. Like the future's not cute. Like it's bleak, to be honest. If we don't make some sort of tactical or personnel experimentations with our midfield, we kind of know where we're going.
I have a question for you.
Nowhere.
I have a question for you guys.
We're not going anywhere with
like
this.
my dad, I talked to this about my dad, and I'm like, what is a rewarding result at the World Cup? And I was like, Dad, like England hasn't even won a World Cup. Like, what is something that the Korean fans are gonna be like satisfied with? Is it getting out of the group stage, getting to the eighth? I mean, we're not getting out of the group stage playing like this. Like, I that's my take. So I guess that's a failure. But at the end of the day, like for a team with our level of talent, when we're comparing against South America, Europe, like just being realistic, we're all sports fans, right? We're not gonna be like we're as good as England and France and Spain. So
We're a quarterfinal team.
You think so?
For sure.
Like Morocco level, their last run.
For sure. We're a quarterfinal team because we actually have a world-class spine in Kim Min-jae. Cho Yun-woo is still an elite shot stopper. Hwang In-bom rotates the ball well and can consistently do that. Son Heung-min and Kang-in are supporting him. And then you have someone like Oh Hyung-gyu, who's a busybody, playing in Belgium, scoring goals. Like, that's 5-6 players off the top of my head that I just riffed on that I know can be the spine of our team. So we're a quarterfinal team for sure.
Like, I show you shaking your head, a little disagreement there?
I mean, I don't think I'll ever think that like Cho Yun-woo is a elite goalkeeper.
I said shot stopper.
I can't. Still. There's more to a goalkeeper than just shot stopping. That's all. So I'm gonna go with something a little bit less lofty. I would like to win a knockout round game at the World Cup, not on Korean soil. Think about that. We've never done that before.
Yeah, facts.
That's a quarterfinal team.
That's what I want.
You know what? Yeah, I get Japan did it. Whatever Japan did last run, it's like, can we do that? Maybe that's success for us.
Well, okay, so one thing is like, Charles, England did win a World Cup, but in '66. That was before. That was before, like, you could say the modern World Cup, because the trophy they had then.
They hosted it.
Exactly. And it was like a trophy with like angel wings instead of like the cup we see now. But no, I see what he's saying. I mean, for me, like post 2022, we were riding that high off Hwang Hee-chan's goal against Portugal. And then we got smacked by Brazil, which was expected, right? But we kind of thought to ourselves, oh shit, like, are we finally reaching a true golden era where we're having a bunch of young players going to Europe before their prime? They're developing. We got guys like Pejino, Kang-in, Ji-sung, whatnot. And then you see the debacle at the Asian Cup. And then after the post-Asian Cup, we see maybe some hope with Myung-bo, but then he seems to be going into his old habits of not being so creative. And I don't know. I honestly think that the way I rate Myung-bo is that I think we'll be okay enough to the point where we'll make it to the round of 16, I think. And well, it's called the round of 32 now, I think, in this expanded World Cup. Only 16 teams are going to get eliminated this time. My expectation is that he has to win. I would be happy if he won a round of 32 match, because I don't think Hong Myung-bo as a manager is good enough to win a round of 16 match. You have to remember, at a World Cup, it's not like the Asian Cup or the Euros. There's no more easy knockout games. There's a reason those teams make it that far, especially to the round of 16. Given our seeding, I think, for the World Cup, we'll probably play an easy team in the round of 32, but then in the round of 16, we're going to go up against a team that's probably technically better than us, or at least on our level, right? Best case scenario, guys, what do we expect? In the round of 16, we'll play what? Like a Croatia, maybe? A US, if we're lucky. But if we get unlucky with the draw, who could we also play in the round? We could play Germany. We could play a France.
We beat Germany, man. Whatever. We can do it again. No, I'm playing.
But that's what I'm saying.
And right now.
I actually wonder, this is something we can expand on a bit. What is the expectation in the Korean public and in this space? Because sometimes in our videos, I see people saying, oh, you guys are overrating this team. It's not good enough to make it to the quarters or even the round of 16. And then other people are saying, yes, we're good enough to make it to the quarters. So there seems to even be a disconnect amongst our community about what our real ceiling is with this generation of players.
This generation of players, this current generation of players, I said quarterfinal team. I still believe in quarterfinal team. I think our offensive prowess is all formed in Europe, and we still have Son Heung-min. We still have Hong Young-sok to slot in for Lee Jae-sung even. Kang-in needs no introduction. Neither does Hwang-in-bum at this point. Defensively, we've always had question marks, and it will remain that way. I think what's interesting is our overall evolution as a national team, because tactically, besides Bento, we've just been stagnant, right? Like Shin Tae-young did what he could to have us perform in the 2018 World Cup, but it's still pretty sophomoric tactically. Stilika is reminiscent of, I mean, Myung-bo is reminiscent of Stilika. And then we had Jurgen Klinsmann, and that was for everyone could see what Jurgen Klinsmann did to our team with the Asian Cup. We've been able to hang on to a 20 odd FIFA national team ranking off the backs of individual talent. That's really what it is. Like Hwang Hee-chan has blistering pace to beat their man and make something out of nothing in the final third. So Jong-woo has grown to be a very competent fullback technically to support us offensively. Son Heung-min, Kang-in are already doing their thing. Lee Jae-sung been doing their thing. Kim Min-jae holding it down for us. But again, this is me talking about individuals and their contributions to our matches. I don't have like a holistic view as to how Korean national team football has evolved in order for us to perform on the global stage.
I think we can make it out of the group stage, but I'm just glancing at the FIFA rankings. We're ranked 22. We're above teams like Austria, Turkey, Ecuador, Egypt, Canada. I think if we were in a match with like any of these levels of teams, Romania, Venezuela, who played really well at the Copa America, like maybe we have more players in Europe at big clubs, but we just drew with Palestine. Like, and we drew with Palestine at home. Like, I don't think there's any easy out in the World Cup. Any of the African teams, any of the lower South American teams, it's gonna be tough. And Myung-bo doesn't. I think the reason we got out last time was Bento's tactics and management. And Myung-bo is just not at that level. I'm not trying to be a pessimist here. I'm really just analyzing this as realistically as possible, which is why I raised the questions like, what is success for Korea? I know we have individual talent, but these other countries are getting better too, like Senegal, like US. There's no easy out in the world right now. Like,
I mean, Charles, even to your point of how we got out of the group stages, you can obviously tack it up to Bento and his tactics, but it wasn't until Korea were in extra time against Portugal with a 60-yard run from Son Heung-min, only to Meg Dalot and find Hwang Hee-chan from the back of the net, that we made it out of the group stages. You know what I mean? Like the gap in international football and quality is getting smaller and smaller with every international tournament cycle, be it continental tournaments or World Cup tournaments. So it's still going to get edged out through individual moments like that. But yeah, I mean, that doesn't take anything away from your point. If Hong Myung-bo goes the way he's going right now, we're not going to have those type of opportunities to maximize because we won't be able to build them with Hong Myung-bo's tactics.
Well, okay. So, first of all, I really want to agree with Charles. But then, Kevin, I have a little bit of a problem. Like, how can we be a quarterfinal team if the main point that you are making is that we've gotten to the ranking that we have off of individual offensive brilliance, right? Quarterfinal teams at the World Cup usually have two things. They have good defenses and they have good coaches. At this point, we have neither of those things. So for me, like I'll be happy to make it out of a group just on individual brilliance. It's going to be easier than ever to make it out of a group at the World Cup because the best third place teams will now also advance, right?
Right.
So that's like, it's just, there's a ceiling, right? Like we either have to figure out a defensive strategy where we're not vulnerable to counterattacks like what Palestine were throwing at us today. We might need to consider other goalkeeping options that aren't over the age of 30 and have specific limited skill sets. And also we might need to consider, changing the center midfield personnel that we try. Experiment with that a little bit. So That's like 3 things to create a better defense, which we'll need. Because at this point, like, let's just be kind of real. We probably have 2 to 3 competent, good defenders that start in this national team, right? It's Kim Min-jae and Jo Heung-min. Let's not chalk Seo Young-woo or Lee Myung-jae as good defenders because they're not. Let's say that Jo Hyun-woo is a good shot stopper, but as a defender, is he good? No, because for example, that back pass, he did not have the speed to get out and claim that or clear it, and so it turned into a goal. So defending wise, maybe not great. And then the central midfielders that we're playing, they're not known for their defensive capabilities. They're just known for their utilitarian technical play. So we don't really have that good of a defense. And we've seen that in the kinds of goals that we let in against really not very good AFC conference teams, right? Like AFC confederation teams, like letting in goals to Palestine, Kuwait, things like that. We don't have a good defense. And then also, like, way back to when I reacted to Myung-bo being appointed as manager, right? I said to him, prove it. Prove that you want to be good at this job, right? He hasn't proven that he's good at this job yet. So now I'll just tell him now, like, hey, dude, you've got 6 months. Go watch a bunch, you got 4. You got 4 months to your next competitive match. Go watch a bunch of players in Europe, around Europe, or in the K-League when it starts up again next year. And look at different players, look at different tactical profiles, look at different options, and start calling them up and playing them instead of just giving us the same exact starting 11 that has its clear flaws. Because if you just keep this, we're not going nowhere.
Bro, I don't know how you can say Seo Young-woo is not a good defender if he's playing regularly for a team that's playing in the Champions League.
What? No, like his team loses a lot in the Champions League, bro.
No, I know, but he's playing regularly for a team that's competing in the Champions League and top of their national league. Like, I think Seo Young-woo is an accomplished defender and he's a staple there, just like Kim Min-jae is. I think the only issue is we have is another fullback. We need another fullback that's not Lee Myung-jae, but I think our back line is looking pretty sturdy, no? Besides that.
They're all right.
Nah,
Let's see what happens when Musiala or Lamine Yamal's taken on sort of, like, or Saka, like Mbappe.
Yeah, I think, okay, fair. I think when it comes to one-on-one duels, that's when our fullbacks are weakest, and unfortunately, that's when we need our fullbacks the most. But I don't lose sleep over Seo Young-woo being an option in our back line. I definitely still think we need to consider other fullback and center back options, but Cho Heung-min has done his job, and again, untested if we're talking about international opposition. But Cho Heung-min's done his job. Seo Young-woo is getting minutes regularly at Red Star, and that just leaves one more fullback that we need to find to secure back line.
Well, so this is the problem, is that Myung-bo has been racking up wins against, frankly, shit competition. And to be fair, you can only play who's in front of you. But we're beating Kuwait, Oman. I would say the Iraq and Jordan games were good wins. But again, and even in those games, not to nitpick, he made a lot of those subs based out of the injuries. I think I remember it was either the game against Jordan or Iraq. He was forced to put on Pejino and Oh Hyung-gyu because a bunch of guys got hurt all at once. And then you look at the calendar for March, our toughest teams are going to be probably Iraq and Jordan again. Fair play to them, but if Kevin says our goal is to reach the quarterfinals, you should be waxing all of the Middle Eastern competition. So then we fast forward past the World Cup qualifiers. What do you got? You got about a year, maybe a year left before the World Cup. That 2025 calendar is when you need to really schedule those friendlies. Let's say we schedule those friendlies and Myung-bo does get waxed in those friendlies. And then he gets fired, but he probably won't get fired until the end of 2025, right? So then you have only about 3 to 6 months to hire someone else to fix up the mess in the States, and by then you're probably going to appoint a domestic Korean guy as a caretaker. So
the Shin Tae-young all over again.
Exactly, literally exactly. So
yeah,
we made our bed with Hyung, and I think the problem is that, like Mike said, he hasn't proven it. And the thing that drives me crazy is the man's getting paid the same amount, I think, as much or more than Paulo Bento. Is it because he demanded it from the KFA? And I'm just like, brother, you're a decent domestic manager, but that does not mean you have what it takes to lead us to the quarterfinals. And I love what Mike said. Most quarterfinal teams, you have to remember, that's the top 8 teams left in the world. You have to defend properly. In most teams that win the World Cup defend properly, except for maybe Argentina because they were led by Messi, who's on a tear, right? It was almost like destiny. But besides that, the other teams in the final 8 of the World Cup played good defense. Morocco, shut it down. They know how to box up against good teams. Even on our best day, we can't really defend, right? I think that's always been the problem with us. And now I used to be one of those guys who said, "Oh my God, this team has to make a quarterfinal or else it's a failure." Now I'm looking at the team and looking at the manager. I'm just like, honestly, in 2026, I'd be happy with a round of 16 appearance.
But that's sad to me because it's not us really qualifying our team based upon what it has going for it. It's like qualifying our team based upon what's working against it rather than what it has going for it. Obviously, we definitely need to be defensively shored up. We need a manager who's competent. Not saying Heung-min isn't competent, but yeah, I mean, it makes sense what you guys are saying in that the most you can expect is group stage qualification considering the current circumstances. But considering the potential that our team actually has, I think that we can make it to the quarterfinals. But yeah, I mean, if the past couple games are anything to go by, it's a pipe dream. It's a pipe dream.
You guys are making me sad. I am saving up to go to the World Cup and watch all the Korean group stage matches at minimum. And my biggest annoyance in life is when you go pay for a big sporting match and it ends up being a horrible performance by your team. And maybe I'm gonna end up spending $5,000 to watch Korea lose and get knocked out. Let's go. Fighting.
Well, buy tickets for the group stages. We'll be okay then.
Yeah. And you'll probably have a better debut experience than I did. I had to watch Korea play against Ghana, the last game before they went to 2014 World Cup in Brazil. They played against Ghana in Miami, and they lost 4-0.
Ghana
Who was the
always.
manager then?
Oh,
Yeah, right? I know, man. That was dark, Albert. That was dark, bro.
Okay, well, I mean, listen, let's end with a positive then. Okay, so
Let's do that.
we got 4 months left until March. In some ways it's far away, but in some ways it's going to come up very quickly, like the World Cup. So guys, looking at the roster right now, the 26-man team, I guess each of you maybe give me a player that you'd like to see called up, or a player who was on the bench that didn't play much that you'd like to see for this next window. Or if you don't want to give me a player, just any last closing thoughts, maybe a suggestion for Myung-bo, or just something you want to talk about. Anything. I'll go first. In the next window, if Hong Young-suk keeps playing well like he does in the Bundesliga for Mainz, because obviously I'm a Bundesliga nut, he has to get minutes. This double pivot cannot continue with Park Young-woo and Hong In-bum. It's going to kill us in the World Cup. And honestly, the last World Cup, our defense was the issue too. If we hadn't leaked 3 goals to Ghana, we probably already qualified by the time we play Portugal, or at least in a better position. So I need to see better stability in the middle. That's all I care about at this point. I think the wings are fine with Son Heung-min and Kang-in there. So I need to see someone else in the middle to kind of play with Hong In-bum, because I love Hong In-bum, guys, and I've shit on him before, but I shit on him because I think he's not good enough to be the only guy in the middle. I think he needs a lot of support for him to thrive. So I'd like to see Hong Young-suk playing. And also, Yang Min-hyuk, man, if he goes to Tottenham in January and he starts playing and he even starts scoring or even just assisting, he has to play, because the last few times Hong Young-bo called him up, he didn't play him at all. That must change.
my pick would be Kim Moon-han, right back position. Kevin, I love Seo Young-ho too, but he's not the quickest player, and I think he's okay defensively, but he doesn't his ho-up with his like chemistry with Kang-in, I think kind of shades Kang-in a little bit. So just anything that can re-shine Kang-in, we gotta highlight our best players at the end of the day. That's how we're gonna move up. That's how we're gonna just put in peak performances. So just switching it up. I'm not saying he should start always over him, but yeah, just try it out. And he had experience at the last World Cup and he showed out, so why not?
Respect. I'm going to go, if there's anyone that's been a pleasant surprise, Choi Min. He's done well next to Kim Min-jae, especially this game. And then I'm particularly surprised with how our striker situation has developed. Oh Se-hoon, Oh Young-gyu, I think they should be called up regularly. I don't miss Cho Gi-sung at all. I think that's great. I think Oh Se-hoon and Oh Young-gyu provide unique characteristics to their game that are very distinct from one another. So to have those two options that are very different from each other is very nice, and we have a bunch of creators, so they'll be fed often. So it'll be up to them to play well at that point.
All right, I like all the people that everyone was mentioning. One thing I want to say is I hope that Cho Sung is fit around March. Just I would love to see him be playing matches again. I know he's been having a really tough rehab from that knee surgery. So, if he's still in Denmark and he's back playing matches with Midtjylland and doing well, I would love to see him take Ju Min-gyu's spot because I think they're analogous players, but Jo Sung is just a younger version. And at this point, younger versions are better. If I had to name somebody that hasn't been talked about yet, I'd love to see Jung San-bin get called up. That guy's fast. That guy's really, really fast. He kind of reminds me of like Hwang Hee-chan 2.0, just on the right side. So maybe just getting him to the national team camp, seeing what he can do speed-wise, and if he is possibly an option to facilitate Kang-in's move into the middle, I could get behind that.
Yeah, because Jung Sang-bin is a right winger, natural winger, right? I think.
Yeah.
Is he the
Whenever
one
he
in
plays for
MLS?
Minnesota, he's used on the right.
Okay.
Yeah, Minnesota United. So we're going to keep up to date on everything related to the national team, but also our players playing in Europe and in Korea. I'm going to link all the boys' social media, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, on the bottom of this video. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. We'll see you soon. But for now, thanks for watching.